So I've got a second question for you.
Yes.
So it's kind of broad, but what is compelling about this project for you?
Well, I think that it has all the elements of a great storyline. First of all, there is the fact that so many people are passionate about the book, that have read the book, that know the book. Second of all, it's kind of a travelogue because he gives a very detailed description of the events that occur, the places that are visited. And I have done the pilgrimage. Last summer, I went on that pilgrimage myself.
Wow,
Enola and I did.
That's wonderful.
And we were picking out places where we would definitely want to set up and shoot and capture motorcycles. And they weren't just the spots that he described in the book, but they were a lot of places in between that are so gorgeous and so amazing that it really lends itself very beautifully to cinema. And so I want to capture those landscapes going across Mid-America to the West Coast in the summertime. And so I will be doing that. I probably will do it maybe several weeks earlier than he did his journey, because global warming, things turn yellow and brown sooner than they used to.
Yeah, you want it as close as possible to how it looked at that time.
I wanted to see how it looks. And when I went, it was so green and so gorgeous. And a few weeks later, I saw some of it and it was already yellow. It was not as beautiful.
Well, that's
I want to get it. I want to get it when it's lush and beautiful.
Yeah. So that really brings it up to date to how things, to the present world, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And also, I think, if anyone has read the book, I think they would really enjoy seeing those places that he describes and seeing from point A to point B, some of the bridges that you cross, some of the forests that you go through, some of the mountain passes and valleys that are along the way. It's an amazing trip. It's really gorgeous. And I would like to see people take that journey themselves. I think it's really, really worthwhile trip to make.
So are you still finding that the topography and things are pretty much the same, or have they been changed by the modern world, by construction, by destruction, let's say, or is it pretty well preserved? What do you think?
Most of it is still very well preserved. There are road improvements, especially with freeways and things. But remember, he was not in a hurry to do his journey. He wanted to enjoy the trip. And so there was an emphasis on what was best rather than the fastest route,
right?
And so he really emphasized the journey itself. One of the reasons I call it Pirsig's journey is because it's a recreation of that trip that he took. The first part of the trip really takes you from Minneapolis to Bozeman. And then that's when the Sutherlands head back to Minneapolis. And he and Chris go on to the San Francisco area. Actually, the book ends in Casper, California. Yeah. And so that's one reason I call it Pirsig's journey, because it is the journey that he took, but it's also the inner journey, the struggle that he's having throughout the book of his identity. And one of the reasons that he took that journey was to see if it would trigger memories by visiting Montana State College and friends there. Would certain memories come back to him? Would he be able to rediscover who he had been prior to shock treatment therapy? And that's described in the book as one of the struggles and one of the goals that he had, an important goal. And he says that when he went to Montana State College and revisited it, he did have this cascade of information, of memories returned to his mind and to his awareness. Now, you may know more about shock therapy patients and the aftermath of that than I do, but apparently many of them do regain memory over time. But in this case, it seems that by revisiting those places, in fact, it did trigger some of the memory to come back. So the person that emerges as Robert Pirsig is sort of a blend between Phaedrus, who he claims never really fully came back, and Robert Pirsig, the new persona that he had created, which is an interesting thing to explore. What is a human being? What is identity? Who are we? What are we?
Yes.
And so part of this is this self-discovery that he goes through. Just imagine you lose your memory of who you were and the people that you knew and such like that, but you have a box that reminds you of who you knew and where you were. So you revisit those places just to see if you could trigger that memory. And now you have to reform a new personality, a new person emerges that's kind of a, in his case, I think, a combination of his former and his current self.